Ahoy! It has been a very rough week for New World with a lot of issues, a lot of exploits happening, Outpost Rush having many bugs as well, and the game having to be taken down to fix some of the most major exploits just yesterday. But now we're finally at the point where we have some good news. New World just announced patch 1.0.5, which is again just a fixing patch basically, not a content patch, but this one comes with a lot of very important changes that, in my opinion, should make the game experience much better as long as they don't introduce new bugs, which is a familiar story at this point. But let's get right into it and let's talk about what they've actually changed. The first thing they talk about are coin sellers. They are banning and suspending many of the reported accounts, and they are adding restrictions to prevent player-to-player trading and currency transfer from characters under level 10 or those whose accounts are less than 72 hours old. This is something that I actually talked about with my company, and that's exactly what they suggested as well. So I think this is a relatively good solution to at least slow down gold trading. After your account is 72 hours old, you will have the ability to trade and transfer currency once you've reached level 10. The coin value from some of the early quests is also shifted later into the main story quest line, meaning that it's not as easy to make new accounts and farm the first 600 gold in I think half an hour or so, and then just restart that over and over. Trading post usage is also restricted on new characters until they accept the quest's introduction to the trading post. Of course, the coin sellers and botters will always find new ways, but the most obvious ones are at least being prevented this way. There are also some exploits that have been fixed regarding gold duping via storage sets and crafting stations, as well as one that happened if you own territory after they fixed the other one. Additionally, there are also some really good changes to combat. The first one is one that I don't think everyone will be happy with, but I think most people will agree that the life staff is a very strong weapon at the moment, and that is getting a nerf to Orb of Protection. Previously, when Orb of Protection would pass through targets, it would apply the benefits to them as well, and that's no longer the case. Now, Orb of Protection will only apply to the targets that are in the area where it actually lands, and this is the case for the Aegis upgrade as well. This means that especially in wars, you can't as easily apply it to a large group of players. Additionally, the attribute respec cost is reduced by 60%, which is great in my opinion, so we can actually experiment a lot more with our attribute specs now. It used to be 500, I think, so it should be 200 now, which is very nice. Along with that, the Weapon Mastery respec Azoth cost is reduced by 75% down to 50 Azoth. This actually felt like less of an issue already, in my opinion, with the Azoth that you would get from Outpost Rush, but I'm still happy they're doing this. Again, allows for much more testing, experimenting with all that type of stuff. And it's just less annoying, especially for roles that have to respec often. Tanks, for example, have to respec between their PvP builds, their war builds, and their PvE builds, depending on what they're doing. So for them, it's something that most certainly makes a difference. The coin cost of chisels is reduced by 20% to 50%, depending on the tier, which is something you'll need for the dungeon keys. The highest tier I think was 750 gold if I recall correctly, so seeing a bit of a price reduction here is very appropriate in my opinion. However, I hope that this is not the dungeon key cost they were talking about, because there are other factors to dungeon keys that are a lot more drastic than the chisel cost, especially looking at the corruption shards or whatever level of stones you need for that, which is just absolutely ridiculous in comparison. When it comes to Outpost Rush, the coin and Azoth reward have been reduced slightly for the losing team. This is so that people actually have motivation to play the game mode, because at the moment a lot of people are throwing on purpose because you get almost the same rewards effectively. Now, if you've played Outpost Rush before, then I know what you're thinking in this very second, so hold that thought. There are more fixes and changes to Outpost Rush further down in the patch notes. We'll get there. The war conflict progress bars on the map and on the faction board now actually show when there is an upcoming invasion. What happened previously a lot was that people basically did a stealth war declaration by doing it during the invasion on the enemy team, or the upcoming invasion, so you couldn't actually see the faction progress because the bar was covered by the invasion thing and you had to click on it twice to actually have it show. So now you can actually see when someone is trying to declare war on your area, even when there's an upcoming invasion, which is a very good change. You'll no longer be able to have the same weapon type in both weapon slots. The reasoning is, we want each weapon slot to have a different weapon type to open up combat diversity. This is also meant to help prevent the swapping macros for rapid firing, though I feel like that would still be possible with the fire staff and life staff, so that probably has an additional change behind it somewhere, even though that is not as damage effective anyways. This is a bit frustrating for the healers running multiple life staffs for max focus, but then at the same time, I don't think it's bad to bring in some variety in that regard. Next, there's one of the most important changes of this patch, and that is the group scaling passives, and this includes the Against All Odds Hatchet perk, which was completely broken, but also Bloodlust on the Great Axe and Outnumbered on the Warhammer, and I'm fairly certain also some other perks on the Great Axe that are not listed here that have the same issue. So basically all of these passive that cause effects that scales with the number of enemies around you or similar have been fixed and should be working correctly now, hopefully. Many of you are familiar with the issue of certain abilities just not hitting consistently anymore since like a patch ago. They have addressed that now. They fixed an issue which caused several magical spells such as Ice Storm and Gravity Well to not hit consistently. Hopefully there are no outliers to that, and hopefully that actually works properly now. A very important fix of this patch, maybe the most important fix next to the Hatchet, is the Resilient fix. Previously, the Resilient perk would apply to all of your armor, no matter what, and that basically made faction armor the best at level 60 unless you had Voidbend, which meant that almost all other drops were pretty useless. Now Resilient only applies to crits, which decreases the value of these items a little bit. However, and this is very important, there's a good chance that a lot of people are now thinking, okay, before the patch goes live, buy the cheapest armor from the trading post, the cheapest high tier armor, and use that instead because it's going to be better than faction armor. That may be true in some cases, possibly, but keep in mind that as of now, the armor scaling on level 60 between 500 to 600 gear score doesn't seem to work properly. You can get some extra stat points, so there's definitely benefit in upgrading some things, but it's not necessarily always the best idea because the Resilient perk may end up still being more useful than having a higher armor rating that effectively doesn't do what it's intended to do at the moment. And there doesn't seem to be any direct fix to this particular issue in this patch, so that may be happening at a later point, or I'll definitely have to test more and see what's gonna happen with that after the patch. But as of now, there's still a pretty good chance that faction gear may not necessarily be best in SLOTH, but will still be pretty good. And of course, if you have Voidbend, that solves that issue entirely because that should be the highest tier either way. But yeah, the items in between may sometimes be better, but aren't necessarily always. And you don't necessarily have to burn all of your money right now because there's a good chance that some things will retain their value anyways. On a different note, there was a fix to PvP flagging that allowed PvP and PvE players to heal each other. And then we have Outpost rush fixes, and this is something that is extremely crucial for this patch in my opinion. Players should no longer be able to jump over the gate and get an early advantage that way and already start capping points, which was super frustrating. Also, only one person at a time can now interact with the altar where you can get the token to summon one of the demons. So you will no longer have situations where people can spawn multiple demons at once, which could be heavily abused before. Another very important change is that the Battle Bread is being nerfed because it was twice as effective as intended. It was providing tons of damage and tons of mitigation as well. Along with that, they updated the tooltip for the Battle Bread and the Monster Slayer Stew to properly describe the buffs they provide. So I'm guessing it was actually meant to provide you with some level of protections, just not as much as it was giving. It'll likely still be very worth using Battle Bread in Outpost Rush even after this nerf, or this fix rather, because the additional damage and mitigation it provides is insane. Especially as a tank, you basically never die, to the point that people actually accuse you of cheating just because you are so super tanky with it. So even if it's just half the extra value, it's still gonna be insane. So yeah, get that bread. Along with that, there are also some smaller fixes, like nameplates of players showing as enemies, and also people becoming stuck in a teleport loop if they teleported out of Outpost Rush while using Unstuck. And then there were also a bunch of other fixes that I'm gonna read out very quickly. Fix an issue that prevented some people from joining Outpost Rush because they had a pending group invite. Repair kits should no longer require coin to use. Fix an issue that sometimes caused players to use the wrong consumable when using consumables from the inventory screen. This one was particularly frustrating. If you are playing today, put it in your consumable slot first before you use it, then that doesn't happen. Fix various issues with invasion status showing before the invasion was declared. Updated missing English text on login pop-up explaining housing tax compensation. Fix an issue allowing magic weapons to animation cancel their primary attacks with weapon swap or targeting spells, causing rate of fire to be faster than intended. Again, may hopefully also sort out the swapping between fire stuff and life stuff, but again, it's also not that effective. Fix an issue that caused Ice Gauntlet upgrade Pylon Dodge to only work immediately after you place the Ice Pylon. Fixed an issue that could cause a player to lose their house while offline during maintenance. In a future update, we'll be reimbursing the players who encountered this issue. Fixed an issue with enemy AI duplicating and stacking spawns during the quest Shivering Timbers. Fixed an issue that allowed players to initiate a server transfer if they were in the tutorial. Fixed an issue causing the trading post to become unresponsive or delayed. Let's see how much of that is actually solved, because I feel like there's more than one issue at play there. Improved server performance when a large number of players congregate in settlements. Fix an issue that caused some territory influence to not be properly recognized when lots of players turned in PvP missions simultaneously. Fix an issue causing some player titles to show as uninitialized. Fix an issue where players could become stuck while fishing with lag. This one is nice because it was really frustrating while fishing. Fix the UI notification for landing in a hotspot while fishing. Fix a localization issue where bonus crafting percentages for tools were displaying as 0% for non-English languages. Fix the time in Europe to properly account for the change from summertime to wintertime. And they saved some of the best for last year. Fixed an issue preventing gear score to increase past 589 from drop rewards. We can finally actually get 600 gear score items. That means the entire watermark grind was no longer useless and you can actually get something out of it, and I was really hoping that this would be happening soon. And it's actually happening in a really good patch with a lot of very good changes, so I'm very happy with this. On top of that, as the last one, there's also a speculative fix here. So this is something where they're just experimenting and hoping it works out. Implemented a change to help us dig into the timed out while waiting for the server to describe world issue, and added a fix to reduce occurrences of this issue while we're continuing to investigate. So, lots and lots of good changes. Still some things missing, like for example, more lag prevention in wars somehow. But overall, this will make the state of the game much better if these changes work out. I'm always cautious now because many of their changes actually end up implementing new bugs. But hopefully, without jinxing it, I don't think it can be much worse than the situation is in Outpost right now with the Hatchet. So fingers crossed that these are improvements in the right direction and that the game will actually feel better afterwards. But I'm cautiously optimistic. And if not, I can still make my rant anyways. In the next days, I will of course be testing some of these changes in more detail and try and find out how armor scaling works now, for example, that resilient fix, now that we can actually look at different gear, see how far we can get with our gear score and everything. And yeah, hopefully that'll be interesting. So if you want to learn more about that, please consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you get updated off that. And I hope to see you for the next one very soon. SLOTH, out.